Okay, welcome everyone to the AuthorTube Writing Conference. If you are here from the other link, you will know that my streaming software has at the last minute decided not to go. And can I just say, thank God for testing, because I tested StreamYard as a backup plan. And now I can actually go live. So thank you so much to Ben running to right, who's going to be our moderator today. And I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation right away because I have a lot of information to get to. So welcome everyone, and I can read the chat. So if you are here and want to say hello, please do. My name is Becca, and I am an author success coach. And my goal in my business is to find an alignment for authors that will help them to answer the question, why are things not working for me, or what can I do to be successful? My background as a success coach is in specifically in alignment, in terms of my goal is to look for how are you wired, what are your abilities, what kind of assets do you have, what needs do you have, what capacities do you have, and how can we align you to your best success. So that's always my goal here at the Better Faster Academy and at the QuickCast for Authors channel. So again, welcome to the AuthorTube conference. And we are going to start off today with a topic called Make Good Choices. And if any of you have ever seen the show or the movie Freaky Friday, when she yells make good choices out the window after everyone runs out the door, that is absolutely my motto in this business, is what I would like to save us from doing. And those of you who've been in this industry for a while, you know what this looks like, where you have all of the mistakes that you make and how long it takes you to recover from those mistakes. And my hope is always that we can save you from making mistakes, especially as they relate to things that I believe that I should be doing. Again, that word should is always a big one for me. Things that I believe I should be doing that I don't need to be doing. So make good choices today. We're going to start off. And once again, a huge shout out to Running to Write, our moderator, Ben. Thank you so much, everyone. We're very excited to have him here today. So I'm going to ask you some questions. I do want you to answer in the chat because I like it when you talk back and forth to me. So how many of you would say that you are in control of all your choices? We're talking about make good choices today here. Are you in control of all your choices? And if you are, say 100%. And if you think some, say 75%, 80%, 50%, whatever you think, are you in control of all your choices? And I want to see what your answers will be. I like that. Usually, that's a good one. I feel that. Anybody at 100%? I always like to know that if that's the case. 75%, I like that. So we're going to test the theory of how many choices we are in control of. And I'm going to ask you some questions. So, and you don't have to answer all these, but I love to hear from you in the chat. So, did you decide what to wear this morning? Yes or no? Most of us would say yes, right? Like, I decided what to wear this morning. Okay. Did you decide whether or not to eat breakfast this morning? So most of us do, right? If you don't get to choose what you eat for breakfast in the morning or whether or not you eat breakfast, there are usually extenuating circumstances, right? There's some reason why you are not able to make that particular choice. It's a fairly common choice for people to make. When you don't, though, that's always important. Did you decide whether or not the Wi-Fi worked today? If you did, I'd like to talk to you because as we have seen, my issues are aplenty, and my streaming service didn't work right today, so I didn't get to make that choice, but I had to react to it, right? I had to make a choice in response to that. I get hangry. Me too, Ben. That's me. Me too. Did you decide to be tired? Did you decide to be tired? So hang on with me here. If you decided to have children, you decided to be tired. You just didn't know it at the time. And some of you did know it, but you're salty about it now because, of course, like now, I'm paying the tiredness consequences for all of my choices in the past. I might be paying a tiredness choice for a decision I made last night, because I don't know if any of you are TikTok fans, but I occasionally stay up too late on TikTok, and then I end up paying the tiredness price the next day. So what's really interesting about the reason I ask all these questions, and you'll see as we go along, right? When we think about making good choices, so often we think, okay, I'm going to attend a workshop, or I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to watch a YouTube video, or I'm going to do something that makes me choose better or different, because I'm intentionally choosing better or different. So, what's really important to understand about our choices is that many, if not most, of the choices that we make are not something that's in our control. Here's one. Did you choose to reach for your phone when you got bored? So if you chose it intentionally, you are in one group, right? If you did not choose it and it was chosen for you, you realized that you had reached for the phone after you had already chosen it, then you are in a group that has a harder time controlling those choices. So knowing when you control choices and when you don't is exceptionally important, and knowing what is in your control and what isn't is that is the goal of my success alignment program. Here's one. Did you decide to breathe? How many of you just stopped breathing because I asked you if you decided to breathe, or intentionally took a breath when you realized that you could take a breath, right? Because I brought attention to the fact that you can choose to breathe. So there are even some biological choices that we don't have control over. There are some environmental choices that we don't have control over. And what's really important about this, I love that some of you are like, I stopped breathing. I'm like, yes, that's what we do. When we realize we have control, then we take control of our choices. But the problem is we often do not have control of our choices, but we think we do. So how many of you, if you are one people who said, yes, like Ben said, if you are holding your breath, please start breathing again. Yes, exactly. Because now we know we can, right? So now we're gonna. Yeah, and so this is also a really great point, Yasmin, that there are some choices, even when I think I have control over them, they can be very difficult because I am not always in control of everything. So if you are in control of a choice, like when you pick up your phone or not, like do you have your phone in front of you right now? The super interesting part about brain science is that we now know exactly how much control our phones have over us. We know how much control social media has over us. And one of the things we often don't do when we're thinking about, do I make good choices, is we often don't go after the things that seem like they're not that big of a deal. We really quick our way onto social media. We really quick pick up the phone. We really quick do all of these behaviors that impact our choices. And then what we do is we have hindsight, we look backwards and we say, I am so lazy. I am so unmotivated. I don't want this writing thing as much as I thought I wanted this writing thing. I must be totally unmotivated. And so we try to motivate ourselves more when in reality, what we need is alignment. If there's some kind of reason why you need to not be on your phone because you are very susceptible to being distracted, then you need to make that decision for yourself and you need to change the behavior. But the issue with choices is that when we have the illusion of control over choices, we often are less effective in the decisions that we can make because we're allowing ourselves to be controlled by choices that we think we should be able to make, but we really can't. So, some of what we're going to talk about today, and I'm actually going to, in just a second, I'm going to put a link in the chat that will be a link to where the rest of the slides are going to physically be, because I don't have access to slides because I have to switch. Yeah, anyway, thank you all for following me over here. I appreciate that. So there's this great quote by Stephen Covey, and I'm going to say the quote and then I'm going to explain it. So we see the world not as it is, but as we are. We see the world not as it is, but as we are. And the important thing about that quote is that we wear glasses or goggles that make us see the world in a certain way. That if we are not aware of the biology goggles that we have, the personality goggles that we have, the environmental goggles that we have, if we are not aware of the glasses that we're wearing, then we kneecap the choices that we can make that will make us more successful, especially when it comes to things like marketing, especially when it comes from places like uh, um, how I'm organizing my business. And so I want to have us discuss today a little bit more about the control of choices. So unintentionally, because I focus so much on choice. I forgot to sort of introduce myself at the beginning of what I do. So let me just say really quickly, what I do is called success coaching. And the goal of success coaching, the way that I do it, is to take all of the things that could potentially be in alignment in your world and job and writing life and align them into one place. And the goal of this particular type of alignment is always to try to rely both on the volume of choices that are made by other writers and also my personal capacities. So I have coached more than 5,500 individual writers, more than in all types of writing, brand new, mid list, number one New York Times bestseller, also award winning, etc., but also trad and indie, and hybrid. And the goal here is to say that number is statistically relevant. 5,500 is a statistically relevant number. So when I talk about we see these patterns, this is not, I know a couple of hundred writers and they happen to all be this way, because if you know anything about statistics, the reason statistical relevancy is important is to be able to get above small number patterns and to be able to see big number patterns. Oh, thank you so much for everyone's updating those links. I really appreciate that. So the 5,500 number is important because it's statistically relevant. And then additionally, the fact that I've coached all over the range of authors and styles of publishing is also important, particularly because some of the things that I'm going to talk about today will be very prescriptive. And in being prescriptive, my intention is to be as helpful as possible and to free you up from expectations that you might have about what you should be doing with your career. And it allows me to see patterns because of volume. So here's where I want to begin. Imagine the last time that you bought a book online because of an author's marketing decision. So imagine the last time. What made you buy that book? So you can think of a particular book. You don't have to tell me the book name, but tell me what made you buy that book because you either saw or heard or experienced something online. What made you buy that book? So was it, because I'll give the typical answers. Oh, I like that artwork and title. Was it a really good ad? So how many of you have bought books because of a really good ad that you saw on a platform? And then think about, what was it about that ad that made you click that? Was it a great TikTok video? Was it like the TikTok videos that we see where I might see a little bit of the blurb, I might see a little bit of explanation about the book itself. So what was it? Was it a TikTok video? Was it an insightful tweet or post? Was it a newsletter post or a Patreon post? Or was it a sales newsletter like BookBub or Fussy Librarian or Chirp? Or was it, as some of you have said, was it word of mouth, which is a very big deal? And why word of mouth is a big deal is particularly because it's something we cannot control with advertising and marketing. We cannot control word of mouth. You cannot have what Ruby Dixon had on TikTok. Like that happened because of word of mouth, right? So it's so important to know what it was, because when you think like a reader, it can help you understand the way that book recommendations happen, the way that sales convert, and it can help you to know one of the most important things about book marketing that I think we will ever know, which is what actually sells the books, like what sells the books. So I'm not going to say that ads don't sell books because they do, especially if you get good saturation and people start to recognize your name or you have a really good hook, right? But what I am going to say is that being a standout is really important in this industry right now. Being able to have some kind of thing that sets you apart or something that makes you different from other people or something that you really like about what you do. And what I'm not talking about is, did I write the Harry Potter? What I'm talking about is, can I differentiate myself from other people and why? So, the reason why I talk about this in the particular way that I do, and why I'm trying to help people make narrower choices, do fewer things, and only do the things that you're really excellent at. There are two reasons. One is scarcity. So there is no more scarcity in the industry of book selling. Whether you're trad or hybrid or indie, it doesn't matter. There is no more scarcity. And the rules change when there's no blue water. If anyone hasn't heard of blue water before, think of the buyer's market and the seller's market in real estate. So if you're in a buyer's market, then that means that there's scarcity in the market. The buyers have the advantage. If you're in a seller's market, or sorry, the reverse. If you're in a seller's market, there's scarcity. If you're in a buyer's market, there's no scarcity. When the buyers have the advantage is when they do not have to pay for there being a lack of resources. So the reason that I talk about scarcity at the very beginning of this discussion is because when there's scarcity, the rules change. When there are fewer authors, when there are fewer books, when there are fewer publishers, when everything is not saturated, the rules change. The unplanned overlaps. Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah. I mean, I would assume that if anyone is talking about marketing at some point, you're going to hear about the fact that when there's no scarcity, then the rules change. So the blue water rules, the blue waters is rules are show up and make sales. So when you were in indie publishing in 2012, because I was in indie publishing in 2012, I put my first book up and made a killing because there was not a lot in my genre at the time. It was so much easier to make money back then. And show up and make sales were the rules. So blue water, and in terms of blue and red water, blue water is where there are no sharks because there's no blood in the water. And red water is where there are sharks now. So there's blood in the water when there are sharks around. So the reason scarcity is so important as a concept is because when there is no scarcity and when there is no more blue water, then that changes the rules for how you sell. Blue water rules are show up and make sales. Red water rules are stand out and be memorable. Right. Yeah. A metaphor to stick with you, right? Yeah. Red water and blue water. Stand out and be memorable or be really excellent at something. Again, what I do not mean is everybody has to write Harry Potter. What I mean is when anything is saturated, when YouTube is saturated, when TikTok is saturated, when advertising is saturated, when platforms are saturated, when social media is saturated, the rules change to be red water rules because that's where the sharks are. So, in order to survive where the sharks are in red water, you have to stand out and you have to be memorable at something. And then the question that I ask as a success coach is, what does it take to stand out? So, two rules to stand out: do less and be better. Repeat that with me: do less and be better. If we try to do everything, if we try to be mediocre at everything, we are going to waste a lot of our time doing things that do not matter. And again, red water rules are stand out and be excellent or be memorable. Think about the books that you talked about when I asked you if you were what book you had just purchased, book you had recently purchased, and you were saying, "Oh, word of mouth, advertising." What made you click was that. So let me ask this question: do you click on every ad? No. Do you click on every tweet? Do you click on every book Do you click on anything, right? TikTok. No, we don't. We don't convert on every single opportunity because the key with this, how do we convert readers, is that it has to be something that either meets a specific need in me that makes it stand out of the blue water, makes it stand out of the red water, or that it is so different or memorable that I remember it when I go to Amazon. So do less and be better are the two rules for how to stand out. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. Thankfully, this story is about readers. So we all love readers and we all are readers, I would imagine. So there was a researcher who wanted to study success, and he developed an experiment, and he used readers as a way to initially start the experiment. And he had two groups of readers because he wanted to test something. So the first group, we'll call it group one, was average, the average group, control group. They read at 90 words a minute on average. That was the first group, control group, 90. Group two was the above average group. They started off already at 350. They were well out of the average range. So they both took the same exact speed reading class. Neither group had any speed reading training. And the goal was to measure then at the end how much their potential had been developed. So in order to develop this potential, both groups took the same speed reading class. And then at the end, they tested again. The average group started at 90 and went to 150. And the above average group started off at 350 and ended. Anybody have a guess as to where that group ended? And of course, if you know the answer already, don't answer. I mean, some of you may have already, but so the average group started at 90 and went to 150, less than 100% growth. The above average group started off at 350 and ended up at 3,000 words a minute. 3,000 words a minute. So what's really important about that number is that they started off above average at that particular talent, and they applied time and intention to that talent. So the trick question part, right, is that, oh, if you apply yourself to areas where you're already good, you're not going to get any better. It's not possible for you to get any better than you are. What we need to do is to look at the average places and get that 90 to 150. Oh no, my friends. Oh no, 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 my friends. No. We want to look at our above average places and apply time and intention to that. Because if you apply time and intention, you get better faster. That's why we call our business the better faster. Yes, oh no, my friend. The whole point of why I talk about this so aggressively with authors, why we start off with the questions and how much control we have, why we talk about red water. If you have limited time, which we're assuming, and if you want to have success at what you're doing, which I'm assuming is true, then I want you to spend as much of your time as possible doubling down in the places where you're already good and completely leaving alone the things that you are not good at. And we're going to talk about how to align this stuff in just a second, and I'll give you the slide so we can go along. But it's so important to note the math here, that 350 words per minute to 3,000. And by the way, oh yes, thank you, Yasmin, I appreciate that. I always appreciate when people are like, yes, yes, I've been doing this, because the growth that you see is astronomical. It's incredible. And when you're aligning yourself, but yeah, anyway, I'll stop. I get so excited. But when you look at the math, right, of this 90 to 150 and 350 to 3,000, what you see is that if you are working in places where you are average, if you are working in places where you have middling talent, you are only ever going to get better at a slow rate. So if I am, let's say, not super great at ads, I can take the best ads class in the world and still not be that much better at the end of it when I'm finished. Whereas if I take that same block of time and I apply it somewhere that I really stand out, like my Facebook group or my newsletter, or somewhere that I am really excellent at doing the marketing, and I'm also aligned in that area, I can do it well. It doesn't take a ton of energy, right? Like if I can do that aligned way, then I'm maximizing the time that I'm spending. And yes, so many of you are not doing things because you have that response, right? Like Roseanne said, the blech response. That is almost always a signal that you need to just leave that stuff alone, because the red water rules are stand out and be memorable or be excellent. That is the red water rule. So again, I say that math about the better, faster equation primarily to say, when you spend your time, I want you to not spend time in average areas, because you're going to yield more growth and results if you spend your time in above average areas. So the experiment itself was done by Dr. Clifton, and Clifton Strengths is the metric that we use, the success metric that we use in our coaching. And so I am absolutely committed to alignment, particularly because I want people to be in that top 1% place. So, okay. Buyer's market again, red or blue, red water, stand out and be memorable. So what does it take to do that? What it takes to do that is to ask yourself some hard questions. So I'm going to give you, here's the link, Better Faster Academy, ACADEMY.com, AWC2022. I'm fairly certain that is the link. So if somebody could click on that and let me know for sure that link works. Okay, on that link are the slides that I'm going to go through, and I apologize again about the of not having the slides because my streaming didn't work. So anyway, that's the place where the slides are, and the slides are in pictures at the very bottom of that page, and I'm going to go through them one at a time. What you'll see when you go over to that page is you will see success alignment grids. And our success alignment grids that we do, especially in our marketing, they are meant to help you make choices about places where you are for sure not going to be in that top 1% place, and the spots where you're more likely to be in that top 1% place, because there are some behavior patterns that are really important when you're looking at this. So the very first question, should I be on multiple social media channels? Because everyone in the industry, and this is especially true if you are headed in a direction with traditional publishing, that a lot of what traditional publishers and agents and also publicists will tell you is that you have to do absolutely everything. They want you to do completely all of the things, but the problem is they never ask if it's working or not. They never assess whether the time is actually worth it, your time, because they don't care. And it's not that they don't care about you as a person, but they're just trying to cast as wide a net as humanly possible. So unobtrusively, I am not anti anyone. I do not think that anyone is bad or wrong. But I do think that when you are the author, you need to make sure that you're in the control seat of how you spend your time. Generally speaking, I rarely find people that would benefit from multiple social media channels. And if you look at the grid, I'll explain why. So if you look on that website, the betterfasteracademy.com, let me just put it up here so everybody can see it. So the alignment grid for the multiple social media channels is the red side about private. We do not take into account the fact that us being extremely private will inhibit our success on social media. So if we are absolutely mortified of having public facing things and of celebrity and of people talking about us and people having access to us, we are not likely to be good enough at social media that it is worth us having multiple channels. So we need to just self-select out of some of that stuff. When I don't have free time, where that second red grid is, we also don't consider, do I actually have the time to do these things often enough? We just do them because everyone says to do them. But here's a question for you if you've never asked yourself this question. Is it working? Is what you're doing working? So let's say you are on every social media channel there is. Is that strategy working for you? And if your answer is, I can't tell, then it's not working. If you can't tell whether it's working or not, it's not working. That's a no answer. And I know that sounds really harsh to some of us because we don't like to hear that sort of like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. But for me, as a person who guides people through burnout, who coaches people when they're not doing well, I'm like, if we made some of these choices ahead of time and funneled ourselves in the right direction, we would have much more sustainability over time. So data controlling versus data responsive. When I talk about social media channels, one of the reasons that I want us to be really cautious about how many channels we commit to is that the more we respond to everything that comes at us, the more distractible we are, the more likely we are to lose time every time we go to social media. So if you're an extremely distractible person, there's a good chance that I'm going to say, please don't do multiple social media channels. Pick one, be really good at it, and make all of the rest of the channels into what we call outposts, which is I put in my bio that I only connect with people on this social media channel. So if Facebook is going to be my output or my primary channel, then all my other social media channels say, find me on Facebook. If it's Instagram, find me on Instagram. Yes, Margaret, sorry about that. You can't take the test without paying for it. There definitely are uh, quote unquote free versions, but they're not accurate. The Gallup test is the one where all the science is. Like, so we do want people to take that test, yes. And if you can't afford it, reach out to me. We have people who will help if you really need to take the test. That can't. So definitely reach out to us. And again, that last point on the success alignment grid, I love social media versus I hate social media. We also don't take into consideration that if I hate the channel, I'm probably not going to be good at it. And so I'm wasting my time to be there. Like it is wasting my time to be there, especially something like TikTok, where the best TikTok is something that the book talk picks up because they loved your book and they make your book climb. So again, the should I be on multiple social media channels? I almost 100% of the time tell people just be on one channel. Just be on one channel. All right. Should I do either a YouTube channel or a podcast? Because I know it's all the rage to do podcasts and YouTube channels right now. And again, we don't take into consideration the red water rules, which is stand out and be memorable. We are like, well, I have to do this. I have to, because everybody says that I have to do it, right? So it's so important to understand that when you're going to invest your time, you want to make sure you're going to get the investment back. And also, again, the do less and be better, if you can be really good at it. But again, so let's look at the success alignment grid for this one. Once again, we have super private on the red side, where I say, if you are extremely private, let's not go there. Because if you are not comfortable, no amount of you trying it out is going to make you comfortable enough that you should continue to do it. And I know that there's a lot of talk out there, but I'm talking about the really red, terrified of being on camera side. If you're in that yellow, like, oh, I really don't like this, but I'm willing to give it a try, that's a very different attitude from terrified, so private, hate it. Then I want you to just say no to it. And again, how much free time you have determines it. Even if everyone else is having success doing it, question the premise, QTP. Even if everyone else is having success doing it, that does not mean you will have success doing it. And a lot of what we're told in terms of like, I've done this, is people will say, like, it's not that hard. I'm not that talented. And I talk about this in one of my other videos. It's not that hard, or I'm not that talented. And what they're trying to say is, it's okay, you can do this too. Go ahead and try it. But what ends up happening is they're actually unaware of a way in which they are particularly wired to be good at that thing. And again, I reference the strengths test. Like they're not acknowledging the way in which they're particularly wired to be good at that thing. And then If you are not good at that thing or you have the opposite wiring, then it's going to be a waste of your time. And I know this sounds really harsh, but I would rather see you not waste your time doing things that don't move the needle. And once again, if you can't tell if it's making a difference or not, it's not making a difference. And the longer you continue to do it, again, there's a reason why I wrote Dear Writer, You Need to Quit, and why this is called the Quit Cast, is because I'd rather see authors quit doing all the should stuff and do things that are easier for them to do. Not easier in terms of like, oh, isn't it so easy, but like that's going to make a better impact. So again, where the red is on those is important. On those success alignment grids is very important. Should I do a Patreon? I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because I feel like this one is the big reds are the most important ones. So notice though that there is a yellow and a green on, yes, let it go. I like that. That's perfect. That there's yellow and green on the private and public comfortable, even though Patreon is a public channel. What we do not see is we do not see I need to be private being as big of a deal for Patreon because why? Because there's a gate. Because people have to pay to get inside the gate of your Patreon. And so it feels like more of a private place. So if you are private versus public comfortable, it's okay for you to do Patreon because the privacy need is met. They have locked it down for you. So that actually helps. And then the big red places in Patreon is a discomfort with asking for money. And I know there are a lot of people, again, who are like, just value yourself, just do it, just charge money, it'll be fine. If you have a complete terror in asking your readers to pay for things that they're currently getting for free, and you are absolutely not comfortable with asking people for money for anything other than your book, then I would say we need to reconsider that option. Oh, this is a great question. So if I'm in the red for just one line, is it a no-go or do I still consider it? So the way to use these grids in terms of how do I use them personally is usually to say, I would prefer that you were red in more than one place before you just say absolutely not. But if you are red in any of the spots and you're currently trying to do it, that is reason enough to stop doing it, because the more you continue to try to do something that you are not having success at and you're not capable of hitting that higher, closer to the 3,000 words a minute mark, then the more frustrating it's going to be long term when you continue to not have success. So what I would say in general is I'd rather see you be read in multiple places than to just say absolutely not because of a red in one line. But as a coach, again, like when I use these grids, because these are the grids I use in my head when I coach people and I listen to them and ask them questions. If I hear someone expressing extreme terror, like total and extreme terror, in the comfort with asking for money, I'll be like, let's not do Patreon. Let's do something else, because that level of fight or flight terror makes a big difference. And I am going to assume that you are correct when you say that you're terrified of it. Oh, great question. If you write young adult, should you be on TikTok? And then if you write adult, should you be on Facebook? So I'm actually not a person who believes that you should be picking whether or not to be on a social media platform based only on your genre. Because what we don't see, and what I talked about a little bit at the beginning, is we don't tend to see that if you really hate doing something and you are just absolutely not good at it, and there's no part of you that enjoys it, and there's no part of you that's getting better while you're doing it, we don't tend to see people having a lot of success at doing those things. So if you enjoy the process of learning, that's different, because then you like learning, even if you're not good at it at the beginning. But what we don't tend to see is that if you just make a decision about a social media platform, for instance, based only on your genre, that you will naturally just be able to expect to have success. That is still hit and miss. And it does still depend more on how I hesitate to use the word competent because it isn't just about competency, but how competent are you at being able to pass the learning curve in the software? How much can you learn how to do things quickly? How much do you enjoy it? Because of course, in a new thing like TikTok, if you don't enjoy doing it and you don't want to watch anything on there, that dislike is going to come across as you make your videos. So I'm always a little bit self-conscious, I think, about, or I'm always a little bit conscious about if you don't like it, then I wouldn't necessarily do that. So comfort level and willingness would be huge ones, especially if you get excited about it. Like that's where we tend to see a lot more success happen. And again, like I said, because I've coached a statistically relevant number of people, I'm able to say things like, so I'm just going to give the honest truth, right? The super honest truth. The writing 12 books a year as a strategy, and then writing, let's say, 1 to 3 books a year as a strategy. What we would hear in the general author community right now is that you will make money if you write 12 books a year. It's why a lot of us want to be faster, is because we believe that if we could just produce more content, we would naturally make more money. But again, statistically relevant number, percentage wise, if you take all the people who are attempting to write 12 books a year and all the people who are attempting to write 1 to 3, or let's say 5 to 7 or whatever books a year, and you take the percentages of people who are really successful at that strategy and who are really unsuccessful at that strategy are almost exactly the same. So the percentages of people who are very successful at something like the 12 books a year strategy versus the people who are writing fewer books a year strategy, the percentages are almost exactly the same. So it does not follow that just because I apply these tactics or just because I follow this strategy, that I will naturally have success. There's more to success and alignment than tactics and strategy. And I know that's frustrating to hear, especially at an author conference, and I apologize for that. But part of the reason that I am so passionate about this particular topic is that when we have a bunch of shoulds in our head about all the things we should be doing, we are wildly accomplishing a lot of different things, or sorry, widely accomplishing a lot of different things, but not all of those things are being successful, and we're not taking the time to measure whether they are or not. But it is extremely frustrating to see people feel like they absolutely have to make these particular tactical decisions, but then they're promised that they should have success if they just do that thing, and they end up not having success, and then they blame themselves. So then they think, why am I such a bad writer? Why am I so stupid? Why can't I do this? When the reality is that most books don't sell. Like over 95% of books just don't sell. And there are a lot of reasons for that. There are a lot of reasons for that. But if we don't acknowledge that there's more to success than just strategy and tactics and motivation, then we're going to spend a lot of time trying to make something happen in a way that may not even work for us. It may make us miserable. It may make us burn out completely. And I see this especially with people who are trying to either write faster than they are capable of writing, or I see it a lot with people who are trying to do more than they're capable of doing. So when I do these success alignment grids, the reason I do them is particularly because I want people to be able to make better choices about their time and to question the premise of the shoulds that we hear and to push aside the things that really don't work for us, because those 3,000 words a minute places are more likely to be places that you light up and get passionate about than they are to be places that you hate and don't want to do. I'm so passionate about that. Okay, so next question. And actually, I want to just really quickly spend a couple of minutes on the should I be in KU? I am very, very opinionated about this. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people are like, oh, she must be anti-KU. And I'm not. I do believe that there are some writers who have a KU style platform in terms of that they can meet the KU audience. And I think they should be in KU no matter what. And then there's another group of authors that I believe, because of the way the industry is currently, because they're newer, because they don't have a lot of money to spend, and because they have limited time, that Kindle Unlimited can be a really good choice for people, even if you have an ethical issue with Amazon, which I understand. I completely understand that. Um, and the good thing about Kindle Unlimited is you can always switch back and forth, right? That you don't have to stay in KU. But again, the reason that I want to say, I know there's a lot of push to go wide recently, and I get that completely. But if you are on the outside of the industry in terms of like having perspective on the larger industry, a lot of the reason that the wide movement started was because when people weren't having success in Kindle Unlimited, they wanted to try and see if they could have success wide. And that was the flux, right? It's like, well, if I'm not having success in Kindle Unlimited, let's go try wide. Or I'm frustrated with Amazon's ethics, or I'm frustrated with this process, let's go try that. And so if you meet those qualifications in the green on the KU slide, I do think that it's a good idea to at least consider it. And primarily because it is just one platform to babysit. It is just one ads manager to babysit. And again, the discovery again. Yeah, I'm not going to get into all that stuff because I'm not trying to convince anybody to go into KU. I just want to make sure that there's a representation of that particular decision might be the best decision for some platforms. And so, but I also, again, I know that there are people who go from KU to wide and from wide to KU, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm just trying to question the premise because there are really good things about it. Okay, so let's do the newsletter. If you look at the newsletter grid, the question is, should I run a newsletter? And then the second question is, are you a robot or are you a human being? And I know that that's tongue in cheek, and I'm only partly joking. um, do you hate money or do you want money, right? So I'm only partly joking on those things. I do actually think that there are some people who should not worry about newsletters. But when they are the type of people who should not worry about newsletters is particularly because they do not enjoy reading or writing them. They will not be happy with them. And then what I would say is I would still have a mailing list. I would still have a mailing list that you can get in touch with your people because as everyone says now, you don't own any of your social media platforms. You don't own any of your contact information. Make sure you do have a mailing list. But the reason that the green on the newsletters are so very, very big is that the people I see where I would actually say, yes, you definitely should not have a newsletter are people like I coach an author who has a giant Patreon. And so running a newsletter and a Patreon doesn't make sense because you can follow Patreon for free. They've been building their Patreon for 5 years. And so do not then also do the newsletter. You don't need that. You can collect people without needing to have a newsletter. There was somebody who has like the world's biggest Facebook group, and actually it's extremely active and they talk to people all the time. And they have a lot of word of mouth with their people. So when they put up an announcement about the books in the Facebook group, it disseminates to everybody. Everybody comments on it, and then people see all of the social media comments, and they have a massive Facebook following. So in that case, I would say, do you need a newsletter? No. Do you need a mailing list? Yes, especially an organic mailing list. But if we don't allow ourselves to question the premise of some of the things that we've been told are necessary, then we are not going to be our best selves as writers because we are told to do too many things. We are told we have to do all of these things, and that shoulding that happens weighs on us and it burns us out eventually. So I just want to make sure that we're always questioning the premise of those things. And I'm going to end with this question of should I run my own ads? And then I want to kind of close because I know we want to, in case anybody has any Q&A, I want to answer the Q&A. should I run my own ads? I know there's a lot of talk right now about I should do it all and I should do everything myself. And I'm just going to tell you right now that the biggest problem I see with authors who have success is that as they start to grow, the more they feel the need to do themselves, the more likely they are to burn out. So if you are constantly allowing yourself to be the only person who does everything in your business and you're never offloading, you're never hiring out, and then you limit your growth eventually. Because the practice of hiring out and of putting responsibility on other people, if you're ever going to grow, will serve you. So I just want to be super clear about the fact that what I'm not saying is that if you outsource your ads, they're always going to work for you. Or if you outsource your ads, they're going to care more about your ads than you do. No, what I am saying is you have to outsource something if you're going to grow, because organizational growth happens where if I grow very quickly and I have no support under me, I have no organization under me, I will collapse. I'll either burn out or the business will become too much. The demands will become too much and I can't do it. And I can't meet the demand, or I will stop being able to meet the needs of the readers because I don't have any support. But if I can build that growth underneath of me and have an organization, even if it's contractors or helpers or volunteers that can help me, then I'm more likely to be able to handle long term. And so I would just be careful of the fact that as we take things on and as we come up with new things to do and we get excited about the potential of all these new strategies and tactics that we're going to hear this weekend, we have to be very careful about our plate size. We have to be very cautious about it. And yes, Ron, absolutely. If you're not in a financial place where outsourcing ads makes sense, then you want to work to the place where you can do that and then you outsource ads. So we definitely also don't want to spend money when we're not going to get a return. That's also a really important piece. A couple of quick things, and then if anybody has questions, please ask them and I will answer those questions. Thank you again to everyone for following me over here from the old live stream. And God bless StreamYard, because I'll tell you, if we hadn't tested it this morning as a backup plan, whew, we would have been in trouble. But I'm glad to be able to be here with all of you today and to do this live stream. This was a lot of fun. So if you do have questions, please do ask them. Again, just a quick reminder, Redwater rules are stand out and be memorable or be excellent. Remember that 3,000 words a minute place, because that place is the takeoff place. It's the standout place. The more you can do where you are in your top 1% capacity, the better you will be. And the less you can do in places where you have that average capacity, the better off your business will be. And for me, especially because I'm also an author, a fiction author, in addition to being a nonfiction author and a podcaster and a coach, I am also an author who has to survive in this industry, and I want us all to be okay. I want us all to be okay. Oh, hi, Blair. And hi, Yasmin. And Amber, I saw a whole bunch of familiar faces here, so I'm really excited for that. If anybody has any questions, please do ask them. But otherwise, I'm going to end with the 2 rules of author marketing just for you. Well, I guess there are 3 now because I added get support. Do less, be better. Quit some stuff, please, people. Quit some things. We are all doing way too much. And we're all doing a lot of stuff that does not move the needle at all. We're doing a ton of stuff that doesn't move the needle. So if I could make, please do go to the link that's on the top here. I'm giving everybody a copy of my Dear Writer, You're Doing It Right book. So if you haven't read that yet, please do read that. I talk both about, yes, it's okay to be a quitter. I love that. It is. It's actually really smart to be a quitter. And if you've never read The Dip, I highly recommend that. I recommend, if you haven't taken the Clifton Strengths Assessment yet, do. There's a link on this betterfasteracademy.com. There's a link to all of our Strengths for Writers videos that you can watch, where if you have particular strength in your personality, you can see other authors who have that. Um, okay, what's my opinion on release parties, specifically on Facebook? So for me, it depends on whether that time could be better spent in other places. If there's something else you could be doing that's better than that for you, I would definitely do those other things. If you have all the time in the world and you can, I mean, in terms of like, if you do have, because some of us do have all the time in the world, then I would do the Facebook parties and see how they work for you. And I would try to isolate them into places where you can really watch your sales. Because I think this is the thing we don't do often enough. And those of you who have had experience with release parties in the past for Facebook and know what I mean about this, that it is more likely with Facebook parties, especially if you're visiting groups, that you're going to attract people who want free stuff and not people who want to buy books. But for some people, those Facebook parties are really beneficial. And so if you are going to do them, I would try to isolate them into a time when you can really watch your sales and see if people are converting. Because I'm afraid if you only do them at release and you don't actually have the time to commit to them, that you're going to be assuming that they're helping and then they aren't. And yes, what Yasmin said also, it depends on how big the group is. So, for instance, in one of the genres I write in, paranormal women's fiction, there are a couple of really big Facebook groups that are very active where if you are allowed to post in there, if you're an author who like meets all the criteria, and you post in there, they will convert. Like you'll get sales, hundreds of sales sometimes because they have trained them to purchase in that group, and especially if you're again in Kindle Unlimited, because then they can borrow and they don't have to purchase. But I would say Kindle Unlimited is easier for Facebook parties because they don't have to pay out money in order to read the books in that moment. And then if you're going to do them, I would do them in a place where you can test them. And yes, if you can find groups that are big that convert well, I would use them. But again, I would, oh, I'm such a huge fan of don't do anything you don't know doesn't move the needle. So if you are not seeing conversions after you do something, then stop doing that thing. So I would just say again, like the only reason I say it depends is because for some people they really work, but when they work, it's because they're either in groups that are used to converting, or they have a really, really excellent product that people talk about. So, oh, hey, Katie. Okay, any other questions? We only have a couple of minutes left, and I know we have. I think they were just on here and said there's a meetup right after this, I think, for the conference. But anyway, I know this is also getting recorded, so I'm going to stop. Please do go to the link that I have up here on the page, and you can get the free copy of the Dear Writer You're Doing It Right book. I hope you'll get that. You don't have to join my mailing list to get that. I'm just giving it to you. Please do subscribe to the channel if you hadn't. Like if you haven't seen us before, please do subscribe to the channel. We do videos regularly, less regularly than I would like, but more regularly than we used to. Oh, thank you so much, Ben. The conference continues, so I'm going to end here so I can let you get to your next place. And I will see you in either the Jitsi rooms, which I'll be in, or I'll also be at the closing on Sunday. And so thank you so much, everyone. And I hope you have a great weekend at the AuthorTube conference. And thank you again for coming and seeing me and spending some time with me. So, all right, bye, everyone.